Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you guys AI's best Game Week 6 wildcard draft. Now the team rating is 99%, so it's really high. In terms of the team value as well, it's 99.8, so there's no need to worry about not being able to afford this team. And in general, sometimes AI gets it wrong with some of the picks. I have to hold my hands up and say I agree with that. But in today's draft, I genuinely think that AI has got it right this time. And I do think like this is actually a draft we could go with on a Game Week 6 wildcard. So as per usual, we will break down the AI draft. I'll share my thoughts on the picks that they've gone for. And I also discuss some alternatives for you guys as well. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. If you do, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe as well. And let's get on with the video. So in goal, there's Flecken. And in defense, there's Konza, Saliba, and Gabriel. So I think the first thing that I noticed right off the bat is that the AI draft has gone for double Arsenal defense instead of double Arsenal attack, and I tend to agree with that as well, simply because I know Odegaard is injured right now, but he will come back. When he comes back, Arsenal will definitely look like a better attacking side, but I think they have struggled recently. And when he comes back, the Leicester fixture, Southampton in 7 and Bournemouth in 8, these three block of fixtures may have passed already. By then, they would face a rather tricky run of fixtures, in which case, do I back them to score goals against trickier teams or keep clean sheets against trickier teams? And I would tend to default to backing the Arsenal defense instead of the attack when it's trickier fixtures. So looking at a longer term horizon, especially now when we're on a wild card, I definitely cite the double Arsenal defense. Let me know down in the comments below where you guys are leaning towards. I know that there will be a couple of drafts with Gabriel, Saka, and Havertz, so double Arsenal attack. Let me know what's the thinking behind that as well. I'd be keen to know in the comments. But yeah, so AI has gone for Saliba and Gabriel here. I agree with that. And I think the difference in my own draft as compared to this draft is that they've gone for the double defense in defenders instead of having one defender in Gabriel and then Raya as the keeper. So I think comparing these two alternatives, firstly, my combination that I've gone for, which is Raya and Gabriel, saves me 0.5 million because Saliba is 6 million, so Raya is obviously 0.5 million cheaper. I think by now, probably 0.4 million because Raya has risen in price. But looking at how AI has balanced this draft as well, it is totally possible for us to go with double Arsenal defense in Saliba and Gabriel, and then have Flecken here as well, because I do think like Brentford's fixtures are really good moving forward. They are top of the fixture ticker. A lot of us know how good Brentford's fixtures are, and I also do back the Brentford defense to be able to pick up a couple of clean sheets here. So you go for a 4.5 million keeper. It's not the worst thing in the world, and you still have Saliba and Gabriel. Now in terms of those of you guys who are comparing between Saliba and Gabriel, and you only want to go for one, then I think the standout option has to be Gabriel when I compare both of them as picks. Aside from Saliba having more secure minutes when games come thick and fast, especially when the Champions League is around. I mean, right now, there will be much more games for Champions League, especially in the group stages as well. So I do think like when it comes thick and fast, there will be a slight chance that Gabriel gets rested. But Saliba, I think there's no chance. So he's the more secure one for minutes. But aside from that, you look at the stats, Gabriel trumps Saliba in every other department, taking more shots, and these shots I would think is headers from set pieces, and he's already scored 2 of them in the last 2 games. So I do think like Gabriel definitely the standout if you're picking one. If you're going with AI's wildcard here, they have both Saliba and Gabriel. Now, the last player we haven't mentioned here is Ezri Konza. Is coming off a goal in Game Week 5, so those who held on to him, kudos to you guys, you did really well. I think moving forward, what I like about Konza is how secure he is for minutes in this Aston Villa team. He can play centre back, he can play right back as well. Regardless of the formation or the personnel that they go with, I just do know that Konza is going to start, so he's nailed for 90 minutes. And I think the Aston Villa defense, despite not keeping a couple of clean sheets of late, are still a defense that have put up decent enough numbers. The fixtures moving forward are not, super good, but I do think like Aston Villa will still be able to keep a couple of clean sheets there. So I look at why AI has gone for this pick. Why not go for Pinnock, for example, but then you would be doubled up on the Brentford defense. Why not go for Nottingham Forest defender instead, where Nottingham Forest also look pretty good defensively. So I think there are other options here, but I really don't mind this Konza pick as well. I think it's perfectly fine. So AI has gone for these 4 players in terms of the defenders and goalkeepers for this draft. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let's move on to the midfielders. So in midfield, it's Rogers, Mbeumo, Saka, and Salah. So the first player I definitely want to speak about is Salah. And having Salah in a Game Week 6 wildcard, to me, is quite interesting. It's something that I have kind of turned away from simply because I want to spend more money in defense, have Trent Alexander-Arnold there, for example. But somehow, when I look at this draft, I also feel that it's viable to go with Salah on a Game Week 6 wildcard. And having Salah is never a bad thing. And I think in terms of captaincy-wise as well, he's a standout captaincy option. He's just having the vice captain here because Haaland is having Newcastle away, who have been doing really poor, and AI has Haaland predicted to do very well this week. That's the only reason why he's a vice captain. But if not, you can very well choose to captain him over Haaland in Game Week 6 as well. So having Salah here is obviously interesting. So let's take a look at the other picks that AI has gone for and obviously discuss whether there are compromises being made. So Saka here, I won't speak too much about him. I mean, we can all agree you want Saka in your team, especially for this block of 3 good fixtures. The only thing I would say is that I wouldn't worry too much about the substitution against Man City. That was obviously down to a defensive change simply because they were down to 10 men. If not in general, I think Saka having so many routes to points, and he hasn't even blanked this season as well. He's been on so many set pieces, he's on penalties as well, and he hasn't even taken any penalties this season so far. Arsenal haven't won any. And yet he's also been getting goals, etc. every other week. So I do like Saka for sure. Lock on a Game Week 6 wildcard. And talking about locks, Bryan Mbeumo is another player that is looking as if he's completely on a different planet right now. He has been putting up such good returns. I say returns because actually when I look at the expected goals, he's kind of outperformed his expected goals by quite a bit. But that's just the quality of Mbeumo and how clinical he is. He honestly possesses a really good finishing ability, so I really like that. And he's quite talismanic for Brentford. We already knew this would be the case once Ivan Toney leaves, being on penalties, being kind of the main player they look to for attacking returns. And I just look at the form that he's in right now, I cannot consider any other Brentford attacker or any other midfielder at that price range that is more of a lock than Bryan Mbeumo. So he's here in the draft. West Ham at home in Game Week 6 is the start of Brentford's good fixture run. This is when you want Mbeumo in your team. Now, the last pick here is Morgan Rogers. He has Ipswich away in Game Week 6. He's now coming off 2 assists and 3 bonus points in Game Week 5. So having blanked for the first 4 game weeks, he finally returns. And I think this is the general thinking behind just being patient with your picks and giving them time to pay off. It was frustrating to hold on to him for the first 4 game weeks, but we did see in Game Week 5 what positions he gets into, and generally when you put yourselves in that spot, you would have a higher chance of getting returns. It just so happens that both of these assists came in the same game, but very well in the first 4 game weeks he could have gotten more as well. So moving forward, I think he's a very good pick to have, especially at the kind of 5.2 million range. He is still considerably cheap and nailed for 90 minutes. I compare it to the other kind of Aston Villa attackers. It's always them being substituted, but Rogers is the one that's staying on the pitch. So I do like that he's getting very good minutes, and I don't think you can get as good minutes at that price point, 5.2, for any other player as well, playing for a decent enough attacking side. So I really like Morgan Rogers as an enabler, and AI is starting him against Ipswich away here in Game Week 6. So this is the midfield. Let me know what you think about it. I think in general, Mbeumo and Saka will be locked into most wildcards. Rogers as well, just such a good enabler that I think you would have him in the squad. So the main thing for me here is AI going for Salah here, and obviously he's predicted to do very well despite Liverpool's tough fixture run. It's more of what AI is compromising on. So let's take a look at the forwards and see how we are fitting Salah into this draft with going for slightly cheaper players elsewhere. So up front, it's Chris Wood, Haaland, and João Pedro. So Erling Haaland here has the captain's armband. He has Newcastle away. He is predicted to score more points this game week than Salah, despite having the slightly tougher fixture. And I do think that's because of how poor Newcastle have been performing right now. So I think I would also tend to agree I'd captain Haaland ahead of Salah, but it's definitely close. If you're leaning towards Salah, I wouldn't put you off it as well. Now, looking at the other 2 forwards that AI has gone for, relatively cheap, and this was what I expected as well. If you're having Salah in the draft, you have Saka and double Arsenal defense, you do need to compromise a little bit. So they've gone for cheaper forwards in Chris Wood and João Pedro. Now, I honestly don't think this is really a compromise at all. I look at Nottingham Forest fixtures moving forward, it's actually really good. And in terms of Chris Wood as a pick, we have learned more things about him in Game Week 5. It seems as if he is on penalties ahead of Morgan Gibbs-White. That was the main question we had in pre-season as to who was the first choice penalty taker for Nottingham Forest. In Game Week 5, that was cleared up. Chris Wood took the penalty ahead of Morgan Gibbs-White even though he was on the pitch. So I do think, like moving forward, Chris Wood will be the penalty taker for Nottingham Forest, at least until he misses. So that's another thing to add on to Chris Wood as an FPL asset. Aside from that, he's really cheap at 6.1 million. Again, fixtures are really good. Yes, he's not getting the full 90 minutes, but even in the 60 to 70 minutes that he's been getting, the expected goals that he's put up is very decent, and obviously in the last couple of game weeks he's picked up quite a respectable number of FPL returns as well. So I like him as an option. I do think like moving forward there will be returns for him as well, so I don't mind having him as a forward in my Game Week 6 wildcard draft. Now looking at João Pedro as the next option, this one here is where I may have a little bit of concerns, simply because I think AI does not have a very strong bench here because it's Dibbling, Bednarek and Greaves, so you technically will be starting João Pedro week in, week out. So I think because the Brighton fixture run starts to get bad here from Game Week 6 onwards, I may not be going for João Pedro in this position, maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Let me know who you would go for in this position if you were to make this one change down in the comment below. But yeah, João Pedro against Chelsea away is what AI has gone for. Probably backing that Brighton's attack is really good, which I do agree. But for me, it's just really whether Brighton can keep this up against trickier teams as well, starting with Chelsea away in Game Week 6. So AI tends to think so, and that's why they've gone for João Pedro here. So now just to cover the bench options, it's Valdemarsson, Dibbling, Bednarek and Greaves. So I love the thinking behind Valdemarsson. 4.0 million keeper. If you're going for one, then obviously if you have Flecken already, Valdemarsson is the only backup keeper there. You will definitely have at least one starting keeper every single game week. Now, because you have spent money elsewhere, like having Salah, Saka, Haaland and double Arsenal defense, this draft does not have the ability to go for Verbruggen in the backup keeper position or to have Verbruggen on the bench, because we did mention earlier in Game Week 5 already that Flecken and Verbruggen rotate very well moving forward all the way up till Game Week 19. But because AI has spent money elsewhere, they've defaulted to a 4.0 million keeper in Valdemarsson. So I don't mind it at all. Now in terms of the outfielders on the bench, it's Dibbling, Bednarek and Greaves. So you see here it's a pretty thin bench. As I've said, you need to compromise somewhere. So I do think the compromise is the bench. So Dibbling here at 4.5 million, he's gotten minutes in every single game so far for Southampton. He has not started every single game, but in the last two, because of his good performances, he has been getting a run in the squad and also picked up a goal in Game Week 5 as well. But even before that, in Game Week 4, we already saw glimpses of him doing very well. So for him to pick up a goal in Game Week 5, to me, honestly, is no surprise. He really passes the eye test. The only issue with this wildcard draft is that if you don't start João Pedro, say for example this particular game week he has Chelsea away, you don't want to start him, then you immediately be starting Dibbling against Bournemouth away. So it's not ideal that your kind of 8th attacker is Dibbling. I would much rather prefer Dibbling as a real backup option that you don't really need to use. It's really in a situation where it's injuries, then you have to play Dibbling. If not, I really prefer a striker in João Pedro's position that has a better run of fixtures instead if we're going with this draft. Now, looking at the other two options on the bench we haven't mentioned, it's two 4.0 million defenders in Bednarek and Greaves. Both of them pretty secure for minutes. I think Greaves especially, and you look at the fixtures Ipswich have, it's really good. The only thing I would say is again a very thin bench because it's two 4.0 million defenders. The moment any one of your Arsenal defenders get injured or the moment Konsa has a bad fixture and you want to do a bit of rotation, then Bednarek and Greaves are the only other defenders you have. So the real compromise has been discovered here and it is on the bench, but really the team value is 99.8. So I do think like most of us right now maybe have at least about 100.5 million. I would say that's the average right now, looking at how price rises has been so rampant in recent times. So I do think like looking at the team value that you have, there's every potential that you can upgrade one of these 4.0 million defenders to a 4.5 million, and that would just improve your squad drastically because it will give you rotation pairings with your defenders And on top of that, you can even consider doing 4-4-2 in some game weeks and benching João Pedro in those slightly tougher fixtures. So I would consider that if I had more money, but if not, this is what AI has gone for in a Game Week 6 wildcard. 99% team rating. I think the starting 11 looks absolutely stellar. But again, just a compromise on the bench that you need to be wary about. But if not, let me know what you guys think of the AI wildcard in Game Week 6, and especially having Salah on a Game Week 6 wildcard. In your own draft, do you have Salah and are you able to fit him in? If you are, how else is your squad looking like? I'll be keen to know in the comments down below. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe as well. And I will catch you guys in more Game Week 6 content coming very soon. Bye-bye.